Got the supply?
Got the supplies.
Okay, got the supply. Right, okay. So it's going to be a exciting weekend. We're gonna have another team time trial challenge at our venue up north. So part of the program before the triathlon season starts that we have to test posture, equipment, and today we're gonna be testing first time a 58 chain ring. How torque and aerodynamics play a part. So we're now using, for this particular time trial bike, we're using a GRX rear derailleur because of it has this clutch function. So this clutch function has this on and off switch. I use this because it minimizes the chain bounce since I'm using a one by. So this is a one by. This means that I don't have any choice, but it's a single chain ring, and then it's an 1121. And for today, since I'm really lazy riding, I hate doing super high RPM. We're gonna be testing this particular chain ring with a 58 tooth, and that's the and the bike that I'm using. If some of our friends are asking, I'm using a size 48. Okay. And that's it. Is the trusty time trial bike for speed seasons. We're gonna be testing some speed, how to manage our effort, the power, especially now it's kind of windy. So I think it's a perfect venue or situation where we can test how we can organize ourselves for the weekend's event. Everyone's gonna be listening to me on our earpieces, so it's very important that when you have communication. Right now we have a bunch of newbies joining the team time trial, so the plan is it has to be me, Tank, Eros working harder than everyone else. Okay, so we're just gonna have a really quick breakfast and then we're gonna go. And yeah, thank you very much. Okay. Part of these test runs is to gain valuable information on what's the best posture, what's the most sustainable posture, but at the same time, these types of posture for time trial bikes are one of the most unnatural, most uncomfortable position on a bicycle. But at the end of the day, it's like driving a sports car. You want to have a sports car with low profile tires, lower in the ground. They will be the most uncomfortable vehicles compared to your normal family sedan. But that sports car will provide you insane performance. So to have this same performance on the bike using these time trial bikes as they were designed for, one of the things that you really need to upgrade or focus on is developing posture muscles, posture, ligaments, everything that supports this particular unnatural posture. If you can dial this on, just like going to the gym, then you'll be able to hold that position for the longest amount of time. The key in going fast is not moving too much around the bike. That's why when you look at the European professional riders, when you look at them time trial, they hardly move because this is the key in aerodynamics, or else everything that you invested in your bike will be negated because your body makes up almost 85 to 90%.
手で父を抱きしめる日のことを
That was a nice workout, huh? Okay. Tank too slow. Sorry. Gotta add maybe 3 kilometers. Okay. Okay? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
Okay.
Tommy.
The program is before the triathlon season starts or the time trial. You got to make sure that your posture is dialed in, and it's all about trial and error. And hopefully, for the weekend, we're gonna have a good race. Good testing day. We figured out a lot of stuff. We figured out what speed we're gonna crack. We figured out what speed our eyeballs pop.
That's true.
So now we know for a fact when to slow down, when to speed up. So these are valuable simulation tests. You just don't do mileage and speed work. You literally have to test the limit of the screw until you know when it's gonna break. So on the weekend, that's going to be useful data. We know when we can reserve tank. If we need to reserve him, we will know if we have enough juice on the gas tank, if we can close the gap. We're going to be up against really very good cyclists from Tarlac, particularly the Paniki cycling team. Past few weeks, they've been drilled to the dot by their coach. So we're looking forward for a matchup until the official race day on March 19.
Yeah.
So March 19 will be the official Team Time Trial Championships. And this weekend is going to be a big test.
Warm-up, we go straight to the main event, which is a team time trial test challenge. So this one is the scene where the last two teams would go out. This is the CRZ group versus the Paniki group. So the idea with the CRZ group is that
10, 9, 8. Remember to start the clock, huh? As soon as I say go, start the clock. 5, 4, ready, start your clock now.
a bunch of newbies who are trying to train their posture would pose a challenge for the Paniki cycling team A. These guys are super well drilled, so it's going to be a challenge, so hang on and watch. So as soon as the gun popped, the young guns from Paniki went straight for it, instantly gapped us. The red team went off the blocks like a rocket. They instantaneously gapped us almost 1 minute right from the start. And this is a 42-kilometer time trial. So we had to decide if we were going to match their speed or we just have to manage whatever we tested in Clark. We decided to do a slow start just to get everyone's bearing straight because this is the first time that some of the boys here in CRZ got together. Now, if you can see the trees in the background, the wind was howling. When I say howling, it's really super strong. Plus, from the start, there's a 5% grade climb. Not too long, but poses a challenge, especially after riding 42 kilometers prior to this test event. As soon as we crest the summit, then it's all a little bit downhill. This is where we start gaining a little bit of speed. So the plan was, since I'm the only person on the time trial bike, I'm now gonna be the, you can say I have to bite the bullet for the team and start setting up the tone. When you start setting up the tone, you cannot sprint too fast, and I'm waiting for the signal from behind. If there's a gap, they have to tell me. If there's no gap, I wouldn't know, because my only job is to make sure that the pace is just enough. So you see here, Eros, the third guy from the team, was delayed for a bit, and he had to close that gap down. And closing that gap with this super wind would really take the energy out of you. So what we do is that whenever you get the signal that there's a gap from behind, it's your responsibility to just slow down a bit and give everyone else the chance to catch the draft. So for wind-swept open highways, this is very popular in the Tour of Dubai, Tour of Oman, and just literally
just a while ago, the Saudi Tour, where crosswinds were relentless. This is an example where close proximity riding becomes very, very important. The small gap with Tom forces him to really put out a lot of torque with Eros clinching behind. And if you see that gap on the fourth guy, that's Gab. That small gap will now balloon to an enormous distance. And that's just a fraction of a second. If you notice that, if you play it back, Gab just gapped Eros, the third guy of the team, just for a second, and that caused Gab to lose the wheel. And when you lose the wheel, it's going to be super hard to close the gap. And because nobody else was saying anything, Vaughn had to close the gap by himself, overtaking the other three boys over here. Yeah, Vaughn was able to close the gap, but if you notice his cadence, his effort, he was able to close the gap, but that costed him a lot of energy. And that's a Paniki boy, so they're now leading the race by, at this moment, around 5 to 6 seconds. Still doable, but we could not and we should not close that gap immediately. So at this moment, I'm using a big chain ring because lack of fitness or mileage does not give us the opportunity to have high RPM training. So I have to rely on muscle power and torque just to turn the pedals open. So after much warning from behind and me looking behind, we finally were able to bring everyone back. And when everyone's back, then the game starts again. You have to slowly accelerate. And when I say slowly, you have to build up the speed in incremental movements to give everyone at the back the time to react.
Good job! Nice one, nice one!
Alalay lang, huwag mag-uubos. Malayo. Relax lang.
So we are now 6 riders versus the 6 riders from Paniki, or 7 or 8. 8 of them. You can see Philip, the 4th guy on this lineup, struggling to stay on the wheel, but that's just part of it. Time trialing is an art. You have to be able to read the wind, put out constant power, not really fast speed, but constant power to allow everyone to catch the draft and be able to react. The plan was, because I have a disc wheel on the bike, it's my job to keep the Paniki guys here in front within visual distance. So we call this visual distance because we've calculated a specific distance where it's possible to close it in 1 kilometer. So at this moment, the plan was I was gonna do the entire 3/4 or 75% of the first loop. One loop is 10.5 kilometers. So my job, to keep everyone fresh and last longer, I had to pull for almost 75% of the entire course. And when I need help, all I gotta do is just ask for reinforcement, and this time it's the job of Eros at the back. Tom has to rest because his only job is the last lap. So we slowly catch the front teams led by Anton and Hill. That was Hill. And then slowly but surely we start catching the other front team. So there were a bunch of teams that went ahead of us. Some had 3-minute gaps, some had 5-minute gaps. And on the first lap, we were able to catch 3 of them. So when we approach climbs like this, we had to take it easy just to make sure that everyone catches the wheel and will be able to adapt to the speed. So as we start catching people along, we encourage them to stay with us and continue the hunt for the Paniki cycling team. At this moment, they were almost so far away we could hardly see them. After Eros gives me a breather, I take charge, and if you look at the transition
of the exchange, I cannot just put more speed or else everyone's gonna blow up. So slowly we start catching another set of teams and we pass them smoothly without surging. Just pass them as quiet as possible. And as soon as we pass them, assume their line and gather everyone to catch on to your wheel. So at this moment, we still have a bunch of riders chasing Paniki cycling. Hopefully we see them from a distance, but with the crosswind playing a big role in the results. If you notice, Tommy was asking Philip to go to the left side of his wheel. Philip thought he was being asked to take charge. No, Tommy was simply telling him that we have to start doing the echelon, and this is a beautiful example of an echelon. An echelon is a riding formation because we have to break the wind diagonally. But at this moment, the wind is coming from my right side. So what I do now is that with my disc wheel is I have to cover the front wheel of Tommy. Tommy gets massive help from this coverage and gives him almost 30 to 40% less air. And this is an example of the gap that we're trying to close on the final, coming to the final lap. So we're approaching the U-turn now, and this is the current gap from CRZ to Paniki cycling. It's a huge gap. It's not a joke gap. It's a huge gap. And if you saw their silhouette, these guys are 18, their coach is there giving them instructions. And the last time that they joined, they were a little bit ragtag. Now they've massively improved their formation, and we were very impressed. It took so long for us to be able to just catch a glimpse of them.
Kaliwa na, left! Left! Go, go, go! Drafting konti sa likod! Left, kaliwa! Good job! Nice one, nice one!
Alalay lang, huwag mag-uubos. Malayo. Relax lang.
The guy behind is one of the CRZ riders that was left behind by his own mistake. So, that's us. You could hardly see us, but in a team time trial, you gotta be really, really patient. So, I inject a little bit of speed. We were given a time check that it's now a 33-second gap. I think it's close. It's possible to be closed down. But even a 33-second gap on a strong headwind, tailwind, crosswind, you still have to be very, very careful of not blowing your team. So we continue the approach in chasing the Paniki cycling. Tommy has assumed second wheel because his instruction is that he has to be ready to take charge if we think that Paniki cycling is starting to accelerate. Right now, we're just holding them off, just putting in enough torque to close the gap. But one of the biggest challenge of the course is those nasty, annoying 5% climb. You know, sometimes when you're up to speed and then you catch the climb, you can see us, majority of us struggling. But still in an echelon because the wind is still howling from the left side, coming back into the course. So at this moment, we've already done the U-turn. We're now doing the final 10 kilometers of the race course. The final 10 kilometers of the race course are a little bit, I can say, the hardest because that's where the majority of the headwind comes from. These boys behind us, the three boys, are doing the echelon riding perfectly as we slice through the wind. And their task for this particular run in the final 10 kilometers is just to take a rest. We do the final blow to close the gap to the Paniki cycling boys. We got to be honest. It took us a while to close that gap. Gave us a huge challenge. But slowly but surely,
We could see them from the horizon. At this point, I think we were going, I guess, 45, 50 kilometers per hour, taking advantage of a little bit of a tailwind and being aerodynamic with the bike, with the 58 chainring plus the aero bars, helps us maintain a little bit of speed and momentum. Eros is doing a good job with Tommy, and finally, here they are. This was the catch, and when you catch them, you have to commit. This was pure commitment. As soon as we pass them, we cannot allow them to pass us again. And that's where we put on the afterburners. And this was the final lap with 15 kilometers to finish. And at this point, I tell Tommy that he has to be ready because he has to continue that speed until the finish line. But if we think that we're still good, we call on Eros again to inject a little bit of speed because we're still reserving Tommy and Captain Nims because we need a huge lot of finishers to be able to at least have a place on the podium. Paniki will keep their team intact. Unlike before, they were attacking themselves. So this particular leg, they were doing super good. They were not leaving their teammates behind as instructed. A huge sign of improvement. Here, Eros gives me a little bit of a help so I can rest more. And we're just waiting for the U-turn to happen, and then Tommy will take charge. Captain Nims is holding on, doing the echelon formation. Echelon is a skill that you have to really practice. I don't suggest doing this with people that you don't know because swerving will hit the front wheel because it requires overlapping. So if you can see, Tommy's overlapped on my rear wheel. Captain Nims is overlapped to Tommy's rear wheel. And then I just stay behind as close as possible to Eros to be able to cut the wind. And because of this, we were able to slice the wind better and created a massive gap to the Paniki cycling team. You would normally see this in European racing whenever they race in Belgium or the windswept deserts of the Middle Eastern Tour. Recently, Tour of Oman, UAE Tour, and Saudi Tour. And I only trust these guys. So you never do this with other people. And that's the reason why only Eros, me, Tommy, and Captain Ninja are in the front because the three other guest riders at the back, we've not ridden together yet. So we're not confident that we can follow the wheels. As soon as Eros finishes his pull, Super Genius gives the pull to me exactly on the climb where it was more difficult. But as soon as we crested that climb, we had to roll the locomotive again and continue putting in momentum. And when you're pushing a heavier gear, like for this particular setup, we started to try out a 5811, and you could see the difference in cadence. I wasn't sure because I didn't have any cadence sensor at this moment, but watching this video would give you a sense of difference in gears. So this particular 58 chainring is only it can only be applicable for these types of time trials where high speed is key. And as scripted and choreographed, Tommy takes charge. His job is to maintain that speed as long as possible so that the Paniki cycling team does not do it. He gives me the chicken wing, meaning that he needs help, so I take charge again. Tommy takes my wheel because when riders ride as close as possible together, they can ride faster a little bit and bring everything together again. So as soon as we got all the boys together again with Captain Nim surviving that surge, we continue the finish line without losing speed. Because you gotta remember, those Paniki boys are super strong. One simple mistake, they can just close that gap. With 3 kilometers to finish, it was now or never. So we had to be tight as possible. Eros is now assigned to the back. So his job is done. He has to rest
long as he can, so we can use him again in the final 1.5 kilometers. Tommy, at this moment, all he has to do is just follow the wheel, give Captain Nims the necessary drafting benefits so that Captain Nims will be able to finish with us. That leaves me in the front and use the advantage of the aerodynamics, the aero bar, the disc wheel to slice the wind for everyone else. Tommy, all he has to do is just to stick to my wheel as long as he can. Captain Nis is the same. All he has to do is to stick to Tom's wheel as long as he can. And then as soon as we start feeling the tightness on the legs, here comes Eros. So the way we do it is that we radio in and tell people on the radio who I need to be in front. Without hesitation, you gotta sacrifice for the team. So it's not about trying to preserve yourself. If you think you have enough juice, you have to contribute to the power and locomotive. So Eros, his job is to empty his tank as long as he can, the way he was training. As an 18-year-old, we believe that he has a lot of talent and opportunity to blossom in this sport by starting here. So as soon as I asked him to go to the front, all I had to do was just to latch onto his wheel. It really helps when you have a 58 chainring. It gives me a little bit of a break in the heart rate department. Tommy is trying to hang on. The reason why Tommy is really hurting here is that it may not be so obvious, but the wind and that cut, that moment was the wind surging between me and Tommy. Tommy caught that wind. We didn't know because the wind was so strong. It was just a blur. And we got the third guy latching on. So 1, 2, 3. I didn't know. Honestly, I didn't know that Tommy was caught by that surge of a wind. But eventually, we're gonna be aware of it because of the shouts. Because at the end of the day, you have to finish as a complete group, and that's the gap. If you just saw a glimpse of Tommy's front wheel and Captain Nims, that was the gap. Then eventually, we also gapped the third guy who was behind us, just because we were so serious. So that's the entire crew. And then these are the two stooges that were not aware of what was happening. But it has become common practice that when you don't hear anything at the back, that would be weird. So simple, quick look from behind. That's it. Game over. We gotta wait. So I tell Eros to just wait for a while. It's futile if you don't wait for your teammates. Eros were arguing, but I said no, we have to wait for everyone. So we gave Tommy the signal on the radio that we're waiting. Yeah, we're waiting at this moment. So Captain Nims and Tommy gets the signal. And while we are waiting, they cannot slow down. So we're just waiting until everyone comes from behind and closes the gap, and then we re-accelerate again. At this moment, when we look behind, the Paniki cycling boys were not around. So we think that, okay, we're okay. Unfortunately, because we lost one or two guys, technically, we're not going to win the race anymore. Based on time, sure, yeah, we were on top of the leaderboards in terms of time, but technically, because we lost one guy or two guys from the team, because one slipped during the downhill, his pedal unclipped, the other one, his chain dropped, so that was a mechanical, we could wait for him. So technically, yeah, we were ahead in terms of time, but in terms of finish line awards, no chance that we were gonna place second. On the downhill, you see our posture where we had to slice the wind, saves us a lot of energy. We just keep on rolling until the finish line. Eros was on fire. Now I had to wait for Captain Nim. So Tommy and Eros this time were not aware that our fourth guy is left behind, so everyone slows down. The clock stops on the fifth guy. So that was the finish line. So everyone had to stop their clock here at the finish line.
During this training camps, the way we organize 50 to 100 people is that every single time we ride, it has to be newbie friendly. So even if you're so far away from the back of the pack, everyone gets to communicate with me on our headset. So you get all the instructions, you get what gearing you have to use, you get updates of how many kilometers we've already done, you get updates on where to put your hand on the bike. It's literally a scripted choreographed ride that would help every newbie understand and ask him what his name is.
Hey, what's your name? Aussie.
Aussie?
RC. Hi, RC. Good morning.
How often do you bike? How often do you bike? Every day? Okay, okay. See you soon. Natapos mo na ba yung module mo? Ha? Hindi mo pa natapos module mo? Anong ginagawa mo dito? Ha? Nagbabike? Bakit? Ba't gusto mo magbike? Picture tayo. 1, 2. Okay.